Hey guys, Aggie K. Wealth Therapist, and I'm coming to you today from this not the sexiest angle because I'm under my heating pad because I went to a personal training session today. I had a personal training session at my fitness club, and I had never done the onboarding session when I joined the club, and they give you like a free personal training session. So I decided that I would do it today, and just see what it had to offer. And I wanted to tell you guys this story as it relates to this topic of greed that I wanted to talk about, because it's been an interesting concept coming up with my clients lately. And I thought I would jump into it and talk about, and tell you the story first, and so that we can talk a little bit about what the subconscious thinks of greed and why it's an important block to release to be able to make more money. So here's what happened. I went to this personal training session, or this onboarding session, whatever. And, the guy and he's good. The guy's good. He takes me through the whole thing. His concepts make a lot of sense. I like the way he was like sort of taking me through the process. I was enjoying that. And I'm expecting a pitch at the end, which I was open to kind of hearing and seeing what he had to offer. And it was interesting because at the very end, when he's supposed to make the pitch, he said something that turned me right off and really made me walk away from making that a sale for him. Because I was pretty open until that point. And what he said was that, if I see him around the gym or I have any questions, he's always happy to help and it's not a problem. And then he said, I had the position at this other club of working at this fancy other gym of like vice president, and I made all this money and da-da-da. I made, blah, blah, blah. And now, I've just returned to what I love because money just doesn't motivate me. And I was like, oh my God, this is the wrong person to tell that to. I'm like, your money mindset needs some healing, right? I thought how funny it was that he decided to tell me that at the end of the session. It was really interesting. He was like, money just doesn't motivate me. And he's like, I make half of what I made before. And, I'm here from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like, there's a couple things going on here. So he lost the sale for me. He lost the sale in that moment because the way that he made it seem was, if you are motivated by money, and if someone were motivated to make money at the position that he's in, or any position, it somehow infers that you're a bad person, or that you don't have your values correctly. He was like, I'm focused on my family and my faith, which is fine. That's your prerogative. Not sure why any of that was important in a sales conversation, but that sales conversation turned me away because to not be motivated by money, to make it seem like it's a bad thing for me, obviously as a money mindset coach and a wealth therapist, I was like, oh no, it's the opposite of what I want to hear. Like, go for the sale, sell me on the transformation, tell me what's going to happen, instead of what happened instead, which was, look at what a good person I am. Money doesn't interest me. That's really what he was leading with, was like, I know what he was trying to say was, look, I really care about, getting people the results and getting people like to feel better and like enjoying what I do. But what he was trying to sell was like, look, I'm a really good person. I don't do this for the money. Everybody does it for the money. Everybody does what they do for the money. Whether they like to do it or they don't like to do it is a different story. But if he didn't have to do that, he wouldn't do it for sure. Right? So it was an interesting thing to kind of demonize money in this sense, or demonize being motivated by money. And that's something interesting to think about when you're in the sales process. If you're selling someone on something, on yourself, on your services, on whatever it might be, that it's not always a turn on for people to hear about like, you know, that that you would be doing this anyway. Well, if you're really, really good at what you do, then you focus on the transformation versus like, I'm a good person, I don't do this for the money. You know, it did not have the effect on me that maybe has worked for him. So I wanted to take this in because it created this like, you know, conflict for me around, well, why can't you also have a value that says, and why is money being demonized here? And, you know, I don't know what was going on for him particularly. Not a bad person, not a bad guy. But just what was going on for him particularly to think that. And so I thought about it as a money mindset question afterwards. And I was saying to myself, you know, either obviously he made a lot of money before, but had a really high price tag for him. So he has either equaled, or his subconscious has made money equal, or lots of money to equal lots of work, no time with his family, loss of priorities, totally burned out, whatever the case might be. So he's either associated being motivated by money with, or he's associated money with, you know, losing time, not having boundaries, like giving time, you know, time for money kind of thing. And he has like a negative concept, or he has just like a negative concept about money, that you shouldn't be motivated by it because it's intrinsically evil. I am so cozy, Terry. I have my heating blanket because the guy did actually give me a really good workout. So I'm like warming up my hips, and it's kind of a little bit gray and dreary. So yes, I am cozy. It's that cozy time of year. So that's what it made me think. If you're not motivated by money, could be a couple of things going on, you know, and it's not just people with money or people without money who might say that they're not motivated by money. And it's like an interesting choice of words, as well, to say that. So what I want you to think about as I'm telling you this story and thinking about being motivated by money is that the subconscious is always speaking to us in metaphors, in wordplay, right? It's like giving us clues as to what is going on. So that's why my money mindset spidey senses went off during this conversation, was because I was like, something's going on here. Either he thinks that he can't have both. He can't have money and time and his faith and his family and all the things that he wants, because that's how it's been presented to him so far. So instead of looking for a way to heal that, it's just going to be like, I'm just going to like move money off the table, make way less money, and like not be stressed, which is probably not true. Because if you're not making enough money, then you're probably still stressed. So it was interesting. But then demonizing the money made it somehow like, oh, if he did want the money, then he'd be a bad person or a greedy person, or there's some kind of negativity attached to that. So I want to take a look at greed. And what does greed mean? Because you want to look at money, when you're looking into your subconscious about blocks, you want to be looking at all the ways in which your subconscious could be making money a reason, like could be finding reasons to not have it, right? To not make more, to not save it. And this is looking at greed. And this came up for a client of mine who was working through a block on her way to a 5-figure launch. And we were looking at, well, what would it mean if you were successful in that? What would be wrong about that? And what we talked about was this idea of greed, that maybe I'm greedy. You know, like, why do I need that much money? Why do I need that much success? And so think about the word greed and the concept of greed. Greedy implies taking more than you need, being selfish, and maybe hurting someone in the process of getting that money. Hurting someone, or somehow not having integrity around the making or the receiving of that money is the sense of what greediness brings up. So if greedy is a word that you heard, if you ever heard someone call you greedy, even when you were a kid, it didn't have to be about money, but about food or about stuff or about things. If you were ever called out for being greedy, this is a good concept for you to explore in and around your subconscious thoughts around greed, because it can be coming up around money. You could be blocking yourself from making more money because there's this looming idea that you could be seen as a greedy person, and that's something your ego might be avoiding at all costs. So you want to take a look at, what do I think about greed? What did my family think about greed? What do I think about greedy people? Who do I think greedy people are? Are they wealthy people? Are they successful people? Like, what is the intrinsic quality of the people that I think that are greedy? And taking more than they need? Because this idea of more than you need, you can survive off of like quite a little amount, right? Like if you really had to, you could survive off of a little amount. So taking more than you need might just be like living really comfortably or living like a certain lifestyle that you desire. But in some way in your subconscious, it might fall into greed. It might be from like a religious background. It might be from, poverty consciousness where, you weren't humble if you were greedy. You weren't humble if you took more than you need. It might have been the circumstances you grew up in. But I want you to explore this idea of taking more than you need as being greedy versus taking more than you need being what you need. Because taking more than you need, what you need is very basic to survive. You need a lot more probably to thrive and be happy. Not everybody, but most cases, if you're studying money mindset or if you're studying your subconscious because you're trying to figure out what the blocks are. So you need to start getting comfortable with this concept of taking more than you need. And you need to explore that in your subconscious and be like, what's going on there? What do I think about greedy people? What do I think about people who take more than they need? What do I think about people who, like, do I think it's like very indulgent for someone to have a 100K launch? Do I think it's indulgent for somebody to make a lot of money at once? What do I think about that? So take a look at this greed concept. Greedy people. What if I want more? What if I'm taking more than I need? And this idea that I might be hurting someone in the process is really, really important. If you were taught to be really obedient as a child, this idea that you might be taking from people, when you're selling could be really, really painful for you and something that you need to heal, because it's going to block you from being able to make money, because there's an assumption that people don't have it. You're assuming that everyone who comes across your path doesn't have it because you're assuming you don't have it, right? It's a projection. So you want to get super duper clear on that. Hey, Annika. Because I've seen that hurt a lot of people, who were taught to be really humble and really obedient as children. They have a really hard time with this concept of, they don't even call it selling, they call it taking money from people. Oh, I feel bad taking money from them when it's so easy for me, or it's so natural for me, or, why charge $10,000 when I can charge $500 for the same thing? Well, probably because I'm not saying you need to charge $10,000, but the reason being is because you're probably not where you need to be with your finances, and you need to charge a certain amount to be able to get there. And you're not going to get there if you're charging not enough for your particular lifestyle, right? And what's aligned for you. So, take a look at that. Take a look at, will greed make me a bad person? What are my subconscious thoughts about greed? Am I resisting more because I'm afraid of showing up as greedy? If I'm like, what's the worst case scenario? What if I'm a greedy person? What if I want more and more and more and more and more? What will that mean about me? What kind of people do I think those are? Answer all of these questions. This is all mindset work. Yes, Annika, defining what I actually need for my aligned lifestyle was so powerful. Yeah, absolutely. It's getting really honest with yourself about what it is that you need versus versus being in a fantasy about it. And not like thinking you need all these things and maybe you don't. And then B, being really realistic about what you need. And then aligning, what you want to make based on that. So take a look at this concept of greed. Take a look at wanting more than you need. Take a look at hurting others in the process. This is all really juicy mindset work that you need to do to feel super free to make money, free to enjoy that process. Unlike this guy who didn't sell me on anything because he was selling his humility to me instead about, that he doesn't do this for the money. And I was like, oh, you think money's bad? And I should have sold him on money mindset in that moment. But I was really sore. And so I'm like in my heating blanket now, kind of warming up my poor muscles. But this idea that it's, makes you a bad person, to be motivated by the money. Because why? Who do you think of when you think of people who are motivated by the money? Do you think of Scrooge? I mean, you can have early childhood memories about Scrooge even, right? From, I don't know, what is it called? What the heck is that called? Is it a fairy tale, the Scrooge one? That he was obsessed with his money and then, he didn't have love and, that whole story. So it could be something as early as that, as being a Scrooge and being obsessed with money that could bring up this idea of greed or having more than you need. But you need to really look at it because your subconscious is always working in metaphors and words and wordplay. And you need to pay really close attention to that to clear these kinds of blocks. It's more than just like journaling gratitude, stuff like that. You need to get deep into these kinds of questions if it's something that comes up for you around making more money. Well, what if I had the $50K a month that I so, desperately desire? Would that be greedy? What would my family think of that? What would my friends think of that? Do I think I'm a greedy person? Do I remember being a greedy child? Do I remember being a hoarder? Do I remember wanting things that other people had? Did that make me greedy? Is there an element of feeling like a bad person or a sinful person in that? Important stuff to tap on and to explore, guys. Okay. I have a new group coming up, the Unmastermind. And I'm probably actually going to launch a PTP part 2. I'm going to see how that goes. I might be doing that for those of you who have done PTP before. I might be doing a part 2 for a couple of months. We'll see. So let me know if you're interested. PM me. Doing some good work with clients. Take a look at my testimonials. Really, really good work with people. So this is the kind of work we do. And this is the work that makes people money. Go take a look at the testimonials. I had a client just in September who had a really hard month emotionally and mentally, and had a 20K month, or like nearly, 19 and change. Had an all organic leads, like all organic stuff. So this is the work, right? And she wasn't feeling amazing. She wasn't on top of the world. It wasn't like her vibration was top notch every time, but she was working through her money stuff that was connected to a whole bunch of other stuff. And that can happen for you too, doll faces. So if this resonates for you, please love, like, share, and PM me if you have any questions. Put your comments in the thread. Mwah! Have an awesome week, guys.